Hi there, I'm Lindsay Tebow with SaaS Academy Advisors, and I have a must watch for you if you are a customer education professional, maybe a customer success or marketing leader within B2B tech. My colleague and co founder, Chris LoDolce, had the chance to sit down with Steve Cornwell from NorthPass to discuss this recent Gainsight acquisition. And after Chris and my time building and growing HubSpot Academy, we are just super passionate about helping other businesses unlock the full potential of customer education. So Steve really, he shares his perspective on the acquisition and how this is going to benefit the customer education community and NorthPass and Gainsight customers. And let me tell you, the future is bright. So after watching, let's continue this conversation on LinkedIn. Thanks.
The first place to jump in is just like you make the decision and you're thinking to yourself, all right, like go. I'd be curious to know, like, what is it like for a founder who sells or sells their business, gets acquired? What is the week, 2-3 weeks after that like? Like, what's happening? It must just be like turning on a fire hose.
It's nuts. It's crazy. So I've done this twice. The last time I did this was 10 years ago. And it was another startup, similar size, similar scale to NorthPass. And we sold to a company similar size, similar scale as Gainsight. So I've done this twice, but I completely forgot what it's like to be on the other side of it. And one, it's like incredibly fun. It's incredibly exhilarating because you're getting just bombarded text messages, phone calls, emails. I mean, it took weeks to catch up on all this stuff, and it's fun, right? And it's really rewarding because it's what you work hard for as an entrepreneur, and then you feel like you win, right? You win the game, and so that part is super rewarding. And then it's also nuts on just like the business side of it too, because as you said, you're a steward of so much when you're a founder. You're a steward of the people, of the finances, of the shareholders, of the product, of the customers and the partners, and all of those stakeholders have to continue receiving like good care, and it's a lot of change for them, particularly the team, right? And so I think the days after, the weeks after, and we're still in kind of a short, a couple weeks at this point, it's really important to pay attention to those important people that really made it happen and will continue to make it happen at Gainsight. So for me, a lot of it's just been around kind of initial reaction of like responding to all the enthusiasm, but then it's like, oh, we got to get down to business. We got to make sure all the people are really taken care of. We got to make sure this integration goes well. And then what I think we're going to transition to here in the next couple of weeks is, okay, now everybody's in, everybody's onboarded. How do we go and achieve our objectives as part of this larger organization? So I think that's just kind of like the hype cycle, and then the getting back to business.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I'm just like in my head trying to write down all of those different stakeholders you mentioned, right? You have your investors, your shareholders, you have your customers, you have your team, maybe any partnerships that you've built. There's a lot of people to take into consideration. So sure, making that decision as to how you're going to do your exit, right? As a startup with investors, you need to exit at some point. And you typically have your IPO, you have your private equity, or your mergers and acquisitions. I'm curious to know, like, probably through the years, there's always been an idea of which way are we going to exit. And I always like to say, the news sensationalizes IPOs as like you win when you IPO. More often than not, it's like the investors win, and usually the customers and partners and employees. But I think it may be important, and I love your perspective of like, why was the merger the right thing to do, not just for your investors, but for all of those stakeholders. And maybe we start with like, what are the benefits going to be for your customers, existing customers and new customers that come on in the next, 12 to 18 months? Like, what can they expect? Why should they be excited for this acquisition?
Yeah. I think all those exit scenarios of, going private equity, the kind of the financial buyer route, the IPO, the strategic, like NorthPass and Gainsight combination, they're all like amazing opportunities. And I think it just comes down to like, what's distinct about the companies and about the market and about the timing and about the customers. You just got to kind of have to look at the entire thing. And, at NorthPass, our vision was and continues to be inside of Gainsight to elevate customer education into a mission critical function at every business, and then build our business into the number one player in that space. And I think for me, what became so abundantly clear over the past certainly 24 months is that customer education is really central to customer success. It's like because it transcends the entire customer journey. It's like the one business process, and this so well from your work and your experience. It's like the one thing that you can do as a business to support the entire customer journey. And so it became so evident to me. It's like, this is clearly needs to be a foundation of customer success. And so I think as, founders, entrepreneurs, one of the things you really need to do is you need to decide, are you going to be the platform, or are you going to be a piece of a platform? And to me, I think it's a really important distinction to make. And there's no right or wrong. One's not better than the other, but you have to be clear about what you are. And for me, given that I started to really see customer education as a piece of customer success, it was obvious to me that we were a piece of a much larger story. And, without getting into like the whole story of how we met Gainsight, we can read that on our blog and everything. When we had the opportunity to work with Gainsight and do this, it was just so obvious that this is how we fulfill our vision. This is how we accelerate our vision. This is how our piece fits into the broader platform and can really do incredible things for customer education. So I think that's like there's a lot of pieces of decision making that come into how you exit and what path you choose. But that was one of the aspects for me. Obviously, there was and I wrote about this a lot on my blog, but like the team side, the investor side, the product side, there's those stakeholder considerations too. So there's a lot that goes into it. But you asked about like what this means for our customers. I'm so excited for our customers. I think there's so much our customers have to look forward to. I think there's so much our team has to look forward to for our customers. I think one way to think about this is Gainsight is 25 times the number of people that NorthPass is. A significantly larger company, right? NorthPass is about 55 people. Gainsight's about 1,400 people. And I think that on day one, I think generally speaking, customers like knowing that their vendors are substantial players, right? And so I just think that on its own is a great thing for all of NorthPass's customers to be part of this much larger company, this much larger ecosystem right now. So I think that's kind of the first point. I think the other thing is that not much changes for customers on day one, right? We have same contract, same pricing, same team, same product, right? Like same people to reach out to, same emails, all that stuff that our customers have grown accustomed to. So they love Norm and customer success. They love Charlie and in pro serve. They're still there. They're still there for them, right? So I think a lot of the familiarity doesn't change. But I think that now part of Gainsight, being part of the Gainsight community, customers get immediate access to things like Gainsight thought leadership, Gainsight events. Like there's a lot of people know Pulse. Pulse is like the customer success conference of the year. There's one coming up in Amsterdam in November. If anyone's in Europe, definitely check that out. And then a whole suite of additional solutions to transcend the whole customer journey. So I think like that's kind of day one, bigger company, nothing changes product, team, but immediate access to like all these great resources. And then in time, we can talk through that. We're going to really elevate the service experience, really elevate the product experience, really integrate deeply. And that's where things get super exciting for our customers.
thinking about now the business, something I loved in the article that you shared, in your blog post after the announcement, was this, I guess now just over a year ago, you sat down with your leadership team and you're thinking through how are we going to narrow our focus and our vision, and you explained how you really doubled down on this idea of digital customer education, and how you brought that to the market and the changes that you saw. I'm curious to know, like, that is a fairly big change. It clearly differentiated you from a lot of incumbents and other folks. Was there any thoughts of, well, what happens if this new positioning doesn't work? What does that mean for the team? Or were there risks? Like, how does a founder decide to make such a clear decision on a path forward that was, for the most part, different than a lot of the rest of the market?
Yeah. So it was, super cool. So I founded the business on the premise that companies needed a better way to educate customers, right? And so at our core, in my DNA, in my deepest passion for the business was about that. Along the way, in kind of the entrepreneurial journey, especially when you're bootstrapping early on, you're pretty opportunistic, right? And so we were able to get little wins from a variety of different markets, not just customer education, and that was super fun. But at some point, we got to a point where we go, hey, how do we really scale? How do we really get repeatability in the business? Let's go back to the purest founding principles of this business. And so we did that, and we had built critical mass in that category. It was our best performing use case, highest net retention, highest growth rate, best customer logos, et cetera. So it was not only back to the founding passion and founding principles, but it was in the data that this was a prudent decision for going forward. And so for me, we acknowledged that there were risks, but it was less about risks of the strategy. I'm like a huge Arnold Schwarzenegger fan, and he has this famous quote. He's like, there is no plan B, right? And for me, there was no plan B. This is what we were doing. And now, saying that, we fully acknowledged, all the leaders at the company, we said, there's going to be some bumps. There's some strong incumbents in this space. There's some product gaps we got to fill, et cetera. But those are bumps. And so we're going to stay the course. We're going to ride through those bumps. We're going to figure out how to deal with those one by one as they come up, but we are staying the course. So to me, there was no plan B. This is what we were doing, and this is how we were going to embrace it. And it was fun. It was super fun, right? To be able to tackle those problems as they came up.
Yeah, nothing better than clear direction from leadership. Makes it so much easier for everyone to get on board. So everyone gets on board, or for the most part, you kind of set this new directive, new direction, and you head off. I'd love to know, what are a couple of times when you started seeing this really kick in? You mentioned you knew that kind of this segment of the industry, customer education specifically, is where you wanted to go. But what were some of those wins? Okay, we're really getting that traction. I don't know, you wake up and you see twice the amount of leads you normally do on your phone, or you're in a meeting with, the sales team and they're like, Steve, we need to hire, or we have too many leads. I'm just curious to know, what were those wins over the last year that you were just okay, this is it. We got it.
Yeah. So I think what we did that was really different from, because we weren't the only player in the customer education space, right? But I think we took this counterculture approach a little bit, where we said, hey, we kind of think that the current messaging out there in customer education, it just feels like soft and squishy, and especially in this economic climate where customers have to decrease costs, right? And a lot of people don't want to talk about that, but it's a fact. And so we took this approach where we just said, head on, digital customer education lowers the cost structure of a company's operating expenses. Just boom, just head on, right? And so instead of talking about some of the other pieces, which are admirable and true, we had our lead messages, we're going to lower your costs and improve the customer experience. Just two simple things that were so undeniably obvious and clear. And so with that approach, all of a sudden, to your point, it's analysts started peaking up, influencers in our category started reaching out like, wow, this is crazy good messaging. It's super fresh. We love it. Companies that probably in the past would have gone to check out incumbents were like, this is awesome. We're on board with this. And I think what was big and kind of like almost a segue into the Gainsight story was we started receiving inquiries from like major CRM and CS platforms saying, what you guys are doing is cool. We want to be part of this. We want to bring you in to our ecosystem and make customer education more part of the journey. And Gainsight was obviously one of those and those inquiries, and it was the inquiry, the one you hope you get. And that kind of set everything in motion. But I think it was just so much industry recognition just was coming out of the woodwork organically. And obviously the results, in the revenue and the bookings and sales and all that were also very strong and supportive of what we were doing.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for sharing. I think that could be like a Harvard case. I mean, it happened quickly, right? Like it was over the last year. You built this over obviously almost 10 years. But in terms of just that speed of that messaging, and I recall that as well. It's like the first time I saw an ad on LinkedIn, I think it was LinkedIn, some of the messaging, the children's book that you put out, like it was it was like bang, 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 bang. And it was just like Northpass was always there, but then you were there, right? Like your react took you to the top of the mountain quickly.
Yeah. And we started to invest in the category too, right? Because I feel like customer education really needs to be elevated, right? When we said in our vision, hey, we want to elevate CE into a mission critical function, that piece of our vision statement isn't at all about our success. That piece of the vision statement is about the success of the category. And so that's why we wrote the kids book. That's why we built the business case. That's why we came up with like a fun mascot. Like that's why we started like working with people to help them find their next home in customer education. And so the investment back in the category as a whole, I think, was another key contributor to some of this success. Because it's also not something like we were seeing a lot of investment. I mean, you guys do it kind of like the, independent, a lot of independent people do it. But there wasn't like a vendor that was really pushing it with a lot of its resources. And so we saw that as a good opportunity.
Yeah, I think the community has definitely benefited from that. And, building off of that, the #1 CS customer success platform in the world acquires Northpass and says this is mission critical. And this is aligned with what Steve and the Northpass team has been saying. That sends signals to the industry, right? Not just to the LMS or customer education industry, or just the CRM industry, or just the customer success software industry. That sends messages to everybody, and every COO, chief customer officer, or head of services, or whatever they may be calling it, that this is no longer like a nice to have, right? This is more of a just business as usual. This needs to be part of your strategy, which is super exciting for the industry, the customer education industry, everyone who's building programs, who's part of programs, who's looking to help customers. I'm curious to know, like, yes, that signal's there, but as we look into the future, like, what does that mean? You have all of these resources, you have the collective knowledge of 25 times the amount of people, right? So the idea of like education and an on-demand platform that's served up to folks, I'm sure is just a small part of what you and the Gainsight team envision customer education and how people learn through software in the future. So I'm just curious to know what you can share. Probably some of it still, you're keeping close to the chest, but I'm curious to know, like, what does this mean for the industry and the community over the next 3 to 5 years?
I think that this is I think either Dave Darrington or Adam maybe said, I can't remember, but said this is kind of like customer education's watershed moment. And I couldn't agree more. I think I called it the breakout moment for customer education. And if you look at all the reasons why customer education hasn't had its breakout moment yet, I think all of that is being resolved with this combination. So, you read the forums and you talk to all the customer education professionals, just like I do. And what are some of the problems you hear? Like, right? Like, hey, I want to get a seat at the table, or where's my home in the organization? Where do I kind of best fit to the organization? Hey, how do I get the resources to promote my academy? How do I measure whether my academy is being successful enough? How can I embed my academy in my product? I mean, these are like probably all the common questions of like why customer education kind of is hasn't had its breakout moment yet. And I think that this combination of Gainsight and Northpass actually solves every single one of those problems almost on day one. And so by Gainsight has incredible relationships with the chief customer officer. Gainsight's not we started as a solution for customer success teams, but has expanded into a whole suite of solutions for the chief customer officer. And part of that is taking all of the point solutions and weaving them into a fully integrated experience to create a fully integrated experience for not only the back office of the CSMs, but for the customer experience itself. And so now, by having customer education woven throughout all the Gainsight solutions, you get you resolve all these challenges. Right now, customer education is firmly anchored in the chief customer officer's organization. On the back end, for the CSMs, now within the tools that they use every day, they have the opportunity to deploy education in their playbooks, to deploy it in their workflows, to deploy it in their journeys, just like that. They have not only that, but they have the ability to integrate and ingest learning data as a vital sign, just as product usage or NPS. That's all integrated, right? That will be all integrated. I'm a little excited and ahead of myself, but it will be all integrated, right? On the front end side, the customer facing side, right? It's now not about, well, hey, how do I drive people to my academy? Now, the academy can be integrated in the product, right? Through other Gainsight tools, which is like the dream for every customer educator, getting it integrated in the product. Now, it's not just about education, but with Gainsight's digital hub and Northpass fitting into that, now it's community, education, resources, events, and a much more holistic view of education, right? Because education is so much more than a course or certification program. It's like that whole entire learning process, right? So I think that for those reasons, we're really tackling the challenges that have held back customer education from having its breakout moment and resolving a lot of those issues, unlocking it to do just what it's always been meant to do.
Yeah, I'm getting goosebumps over here. I mean, you nailed those pain points, and the thing that gets me excited, and one of the reasons why we exist and what we do is trying to help the larger community be able to use customer education like those high growth companies that have the resources. And just like hearing you say things like the ability to use that learning data, the ability to integrate that into a customer success manager and account manager's role, and companies who have the resources and are making the big bets can do that. Everybody else is struggling. And to be able to open that up to the 80% of the market that has these pain points, whose company isn't in a position to help solve for them at any given time, is, I mean, we could talk for an hour of what that means and how the industry is going to look in a few years. So I'm really excited to hear that. Obviously, your commitment to the community isn't changing. We've seen that, just for how you've been communicating with the community since the acquisition, and your team has been. So really excited to see how Northpass, now Gainsight, grows and integrates and continues to be a leader in the market. Right? The amount of knowledge and information you're going to be gathering about how education can be woven throughout the entire customer experience now with Gainsight is, it's going to be there. So I can't wait to see whatever report you put out or however you educate the community. I'll be looking forward to that very much.
And I'm excited for people's careers too, right? I mean, Gainsight like single-handedly built the CS industry and career. And now that's evolved into this chief customer officer that has support and customer success and renewals and expansion and professional services and onboarding and now education and community. And so it's just really exciting to see how we can continue to invest in each one of those verticals, education being a really big one.
Yeah, wonderful. So what's next for you? You've joined Gainsight. How does Steve, the founder of NorthPass, move forward from here?
Yeah, when we were going through this process of the acquisition, obviously that was a key question. Hey, what do I want to do next, right? And Gainsight is just an amazing company, and so I've decided to join Gainsight, stay on as the oversee the strategy around customer education for product and go to market, and continue to drive that forward and continue to push and see our vision through. So I'm just as excited as ever about this space, and I'm pumped to now not have to do it like independently, but do it with a huge machine. I mean, now at Pulse, coming up in Europe next, there's going to be a track for education, right? Where on earth would we have been able to do that as NorthPass on our own? That's super cool, right? And that'll happen again in the US in May. And there's all these events across the country in the meantime. And so, I'm just as passionate as I've ever been about customer education and building that. So I'm pumped to stay on board and continue to do it in a just much bigger, faster way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Basically, all those things that you mentioned in the beginning as a founder you have to deal with, you can put kind of that to the side and focus on the strategy, the industry, the growth. Very much looking forward to where you help this industry grow over the next few years. The last thing I'll do is just give you the floor. Anything else, the questions I haven't asked, maybe questions you've seen come through from the community, the last word, anything you'd like to share before we call it a day?
Hey, I really appreciate everything you and your team are doing, Chris, at the Academy Advisors. I mean, you guys are doing amazing work, playing a major role and contributing to the growth of the community. So just keep up the incredible work. I'm excited to see what our partnership evolves over time too, see what we can do together more, helping mutual customers, helping new customers. So thank you and your whole team for doing really, really great work.
Well, thank you for the kind words. We'll keep growing this industry together, and I'm sure we'll touch base again sometime soon.
Yeah, awesome. Great to chat with you, Chris.
Likewise. Thanks.